Years ago, when I lived in Vancouver, I worked as a professional tarot card reader. Every day that I read tarot cards, I would bring my sketchbook or my watercolor supplies to paint or draw between clients. And I feel like some of my most mystical work came through me at that time. It was around that era that I learned to differentiate between something being aesthetically pleasing, which is what I typically aim for in my paintings and my drawings, versus something that carries a mystical message, something that carries a vibration or a spiritual quality that compels the viewer to contemplate or ponder on something about the self or the universe, existence as a whole. When I completed this particular painting, the painting on your screen right now, my first initial gut reaction when I looked at it was, ugh, I didn't like it at all. For some reason, the sharp lines in the triangles, the warm color palette, like all the oranges and yellows and reds, and the way the green stuff within the triangle that you see on your bottom right, which, to be fair, this painting is sideways. Usually I would showcase it vertically, not horizontally. Anyway, for whatever reason, I just didn't like it. And yet, the first client who came into my shop to look at it when it was completed was captivated. And all of my paintings have intuitive titles to them, when I title them at all. Sometimes I leave them untitled so as not to give any hint of meaning to the viewer so that the meaning can stay open. But yeah, this one I called it an octave higher because I saw two styles kind of juxtaposed together within it. I saw the black and red thick lines swirling around each other. And in my mind, I interpreted those as representing Earth, like the physical three-dimensional plane. And then there's the watercolors behind them that have kind of a lighter, airier feeling. I saw those as representative of spirit. So to me, spirit was an octave higher than the physical, solid, heavy lines. And even though I saw something meaningful, quote unquote, meaningful in it, I still didn't really like the way the piece looked. But yeah, that first client I had after completing this, he was looking at it as it dried on the table next to the tarot setup. I showed him my other work and said, this is what I usually paint. This is the kind of stuff I love. And he was like, but you know what? This one that you say you don't like, I like it better than the others. And that's when I understood that as an artist, sometimes I'm not painting for myself, I'm painting for somebody else. And I don't mean that to sound like, everything, even the mistake pieces, or even like every single reject painting, there will be somebody who loves it. But in a way, maybe there will be. Have you ever drawn something or painted something and at first you were like, no, this sucks. This isn't good. I don't like it. It doesn't showcase the fullness of my creative skills, or I could have picked a better color for this or done a better line for that. I think we all do. And maybe something that I've kind of done when it comes to sharing my art, whether that be posting it on YouTube like this, showing the process of the painting, or posting finished pieces on Instagram and Pinterest. I tend to do what probably most of us do online, which is carefully curate what I share with others so that only the pieces I'm the most proud of get attention, get views, get seen. And I felt a little bit guilty about that because people sometimes comment on my videos saying that they used to paint or they used to draw, but they fell out of the habit, or they just don't know how, they don't have the skill, they don't have a style. And so I've made a very conscious decision to share not only the paintings and the drawings I consider a success, but also the ones that give me a little bit of an ick. The ones that I look at and think, oh, and this is one of them. I started working on this little painting, filming it, as I always do, with high hopes that it would turn out to look really gorgeous and that it would be one of my favorite pieces. And then I unfortunately re-experienced what I experienced in Vancouver the day that I painted As Above, So Below, and felt, yeah, no, this isn't my typical kind of painting. It's not my style. I would not hang it on my wall. And yet, when I reached this part of the process, like where I'm painting this kind of light script looking stuff in dark blue, and it merges the red of what could be a sky above with the blue of what could be water or a second sky below, I realized it was kind of mimicking that theme of as above, so below. And I remembered that particular painting from years ago, which I didn't have in mind at all when I started working on this piece, but that seemed like a no-brainer that I would share along with this video because both of them gave me that same kind of a feeling that this might not be the most aesthetically pleasing painting I've ever made, but it has a message in it. There's something to it. And I'm curious to hear what that message might be to you. See the colorful shapes along the bottom. To me, they look almost figurative. There's the purple figure, the navy figure, the grass green figure, the yellow figure with like a sunshine face outlined in gold. To me, those are like the characters within this painting. And they exist in a field of light, washy sky blue next to kind of like a hill that has sacred script coming down on it. Even as I talk this out, I'm getting new ideas. I'm like seeing new things in the painting that I hadn't noticed before. And I'm just going to voice it out loud. One of those things could be the theme of crop circles. That thing to the left of the painting, that like yellow thing with red orange splotches in it that I did the very last details on when I drew that script looking navy blue painterly stuff similar to what's above in the painting. In that, I'm seeing some sacred geometry. There's a circle containing a triangle, containing a square, containing another circle. And yeah, back in like I think it was 2011, maybe 2013, somewhere in there, I was blessed enough to go on a little mystical tour of the English countryside. I saw Glastonbury, climbed the Tor and Avebury, and got to interact with the standing stones. That was one of the highlights of my life. If you go to Stonehenge, you can't actually touch the stones. They're very protected. Because there are some species of lichen that live on them that they don't want people interfering with the oils and acids in our hands. But if you go to Avebury, which is in the same sort of area, there's a gigantic ancient stone circle, and you can actually walk right up to the stones, touch them, put your ear up to them. Our tour guide said sometimes people hear things when they listen to them, like a ringing sound in the stones. It's very cool. Highly recommend it if you have clairaudience or the ability to hear things that are not physically audible to others around you. But anyway, where I'm going with that is that I have been very captivated by a lot of the geometry in crop circles. And that day when I was in England exploring the countryside with my friend Alexandra, we actually got to go into a crop circle that had formed overnight while we were sleeping in our bed and breakfast in Glastonbury. Little did we know there were two crop circles being created. One of them was like a circle of arrowheads or a circle of arrows pointing inwards. And that formed near the White Horse. I think it's called Chilbolton Farm area. And of course, we got to go into that one. There was a little donation jar to give money to the farmer for any damage our footsteps might do to the crops. And another one that we got to go into was in a field very, very near to Stonehenge. We actually saw the crop circle when we stopped to take some photos on a bench in Stonehenge. And I looked at the wheat field in the background and said, wait, what's that? And that particular crop circle turned out to be circle within a square, within a circle, within a square, within a circle, within a square. It was so cool because that is a symbol I've drawn in my art for as long as I can remember. And it was almost as if the circle makers were giving me a little wink to let me know they knew I was there. And the reason I say that is that the day before we did our little tour, my friend Alexandra contacted our tour guide and he asked if there was anything specific we really wanted to see. There was a very small group of us on that tour, I think 5 people. And the others all had their requests, like someone wanted to see Chilbolton Hill, which is a very cool mound in the countryside. Another wanted to see the White Horse, the giant white horse, and that worked well for me because I wanted to see it too. My request was that I wanted to go into a crop circle, and our guide told us that it was really unfortunate, but that late in the season, or that early in the season, boy, I can't even remember whether it was early spring or late fall, but I think it was late fall. I think he said that late in the season, most of the fields had already been harvested, and it was rare to come across crop circles. So yeah, I felt particularly blessed that 2 of them appeared where there had been none before. But anyway, yeah, in this piece, it's giving me chills right now because now I see the principle of crop circles. I see these like celestial forms hovering on the brink where one sky meets another sky above. And then some of those same symbols have come down onto that hill-like formation. And maybe the 4 characters I see that I started the painting with, maybe they are on their way to interact with that kind of sacred geometry. Anyway, that's what I get out of it. You might see something else entirely, and if you do, I would love to hear it. But I think the purpose for which I'm making this video today is to let you know I don't always aesthetically adore every single thing that I make. And when you work on intuitive painting, when you're not pre-planning your composition, pre-selecting your color palette, sketching it out a few times, and then creating a painting as a masterpiece, when essentially there's no difference between your concept sketch and your final work of art, when you're just doing it on a whim, unplanned, spontaneously, letting whatever comes through come through. What comes through may or may not be to your liking, but that doesn't mean it's not still a worthy, valid piece. You know, I watched a little video of an elderly man who's a painter. It came up on my Google feed recently. And he was in his studio, 93 years old and still painting every day. And he pointed out a pile of paintings in his corner that he said are only there so that he can re-gesso them and then paint over them because he hates them. And then that made me think of how curators at a lot of museums have discovered that really old paintings by the Dutch masters, paintings by the likes of, the Flemish masters, all the ancient masters. I'm trying to name a Dutch master, and none of them are coming to me. I'm thinking of like the girl with the pearl earring, but I forget the name of the artist who painted it because it's not my favorite. My favorite are the abstract expressionists, of course. Give me Rothko any day. Give me my absolute favorite of all time, which is Kandinsky. Give me their work. Give me that beautiful lady, my absolute favorite artist of all time, the original spiritual abstract painter who was literally ahead of her time, Hilma af Klint, whose paintings came to her directly from spirit. And she saw herself more like a translator than a creator of her art. It's like she received impulses from a higher plane and put them onto canvas. That's kind of how I see myself. But anyway, these old master painters, a lot of the times, they were such stringent perfectionists that if the lighting or the shadow or the proportion or any element of the scene they were trying to depict wasn't absolutely perfect to their standards, they would scrap the painting or paint over it. And what's interesting is that through X-ray technology, curators are now able to peer through the top layer of a painting into the art below and reveal it to the public. And I feel like a lot of these old masters would be spinning in their graves or like spinning in the higher plane, watching down, or maybe spinning in their new reincarnated bodies if they are alive and among us today, knowing that the paintings they deliberately chose to hide under layers of other paintings are now being shown to the public as news stories in the art world. Like, they would be probably a little bit mortified that the things they found unworthy are now being brought to light. Nothing stays hidden forever, nothing stays covered up. And it's making me kind of feel like, you know what? Why do I hide the paintings I don't love? I almost deleted the files of me working on this piece. And I almost, you might be surprised to hear this, I almost threw this page in the recycling bin. And as I was looking at it, thinking, how did this happen? How did this happen? How did I make a painting that I don't like? Two things went off in my mind simultaneously. First, a flashback to that wonderful tarot client of mine who actually purchased a print of An Octave Higher, the painting I showed at the beginning, the one I didn't really like. And then subsequently, all the male clients who would come for tarot readings, when I had a selection of prints available, I did make that one of the paintings available as a print. It was the most popular of all my prints among male clients. And my favorite paintings, the ones that have lots of light spaces and dark spaces with highly, highly detailed little things going on them, those tend to be the most popular among the female clients. So that popped into my head and I thought, well, maybe I need a guy's perspective, which I don't have access to at the moment. So let me know if you are a dude, what you think of this one compared to the others. But the other thing that popped into my head was something that I would consider to be channeled. Remember how I said, like, an abstract expressionist artist who paints without any concept going in of what the piece should look like. It happened. I had a message come to me. And it was almost in the type of voice Bashar or Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar, communicates in. And that message was this: when you instantly love a painting, that painting is of your frequency. It matches who you are. And being around that painting, looking at it, gazing into it, working on it, contemplating it, finding things that you see in it, That is a very comforting feeling. So take comfort in the things that you look at and immediately love. But when you initially dislike a painting, when something about it is jarring to your eye and you're not aesthetically pleased by it, when it's almost even a little bit repulsive, unless there's something specifically done on purpose to be repellent. Like, I don't like the kind of art that has a gory element added to it, or a disgusting element, or a putrid element. Back when I was in art school, that was all the rage. I was told art should disturb the viewer because we have enough stuff in life to please the senses. You know, we have restaurants giving us food that tastes good. We have floral shops selling bouquets of flowers that smell good and look beautiful. We have fashion and pretty clothes and makeup and decorative things to please the eye. So art should be confronting and disturbing. That was one of the reasons I chose not to go back for my third year of art school, because I've never thought of myself as somebody aiming to disturb people. My goal is always to inspire, elevate, awaken, shed some beauty into this otherwise often disturbing world. And I finally, years later, thought of what I would say back to that professor if I were to meet her again now, the one who told me art should always be disturbing because there's enough beautiful things to look at. Art doesn't need to do that. We don't need floral still lives anymore because it's been done. I think what I would say to her is, okay, yeah. So people choose food because it tastes good. They choose clothing if it feels good. They choose makeup if it looks good. They choose flowers and perfumes if they smell good. Well, don't you think that by logical process of deduction, they would choose art that looks good? You know, people who are seeking sense pleasures naturally are going to gravitate towards the things that please their senses. So why should art be disturbing and confronting? We have the news for that. Real life can often be unpleasant. We experience grief and loss when loved ones die. We are disturbed and angered when we see things decided by politicians that we would do differently if we were in charge. There's enough destruction, there's enough death, there's enough ugliness and horror by the people who have greedy agendas or destructive, cruel agendas. Should art not be a refuge for the viewer so that they can see something completely different from what they see in the regular world? I think that's why I love abstract art, because most abstract artists will say, or have said throughout history, that their work is like a portal, and it's meant to transport the viewer out of this reality into something completely different, unexpected, born of imagination or born of intuition, depending on how you see it, whether you think the person came up with these forms or received these forms through like some kind of telepathy. Anyway, where I'm going with that is that I've often hidden the paintings that I don't think are beautiful to look at because I feel like there's enough stuff in the world that's not beautiful to look at already. But recently, I've been reconsidering the concept of beauty. We all have a different favorite color. Well, not all. I'm sure a few of us share the same favorite color. Shout out to those who love turquoise or purple or blue. Those are kind of all my favorites. But everyone has a different aesthetic preference. And my least favorite among my works of art might be somebody else's most favorite. And why deprive them of the chance to look at it just because it's not to my taste? Now, the other thing I want to say with this To all my viewers who tell me that they wish they could draw or they wish they could paint, but they don't have the skill, they don't have the talent, they don't like how their stuff comes out. I don't always like my stuff either, and that's why I'm sharing this. Draw, paint, sculpt. Like if you feel called to make visual art, but you feel like you can't because you prefer the way somebody else's finished pieces look compared to how your works in progress that you never finish because you don't carry them through to the end look. Go for it anyway. Fill a whole page, fill a whole canvas. Paint over it like the old masters did if you want to hide what you perceive as mistakes. Or take a page out of my new book, which is take the thing that you're not proud of, that you think of scrapping, that you're not that interested in, and look at it and listen to see if any messages come to you. If I had thrown this painting in the bin, I wouldn't have noticed the crop circle formation appearing on a green covered hill. And now it's even making me think of the layers of those hills. Like, did you know mounds in the British countryside? Like, here's me nerding out for a minute, off on a tangent. Did you know that when they scan them with LiDAR, a lot of them have burial sites beneath those mounds, and then layers of cool archaeological stuff that I'm glad they're not digging into and pulling out, because it's kind of like time capsules being left on the landscape. Maybe that is what the yellow and orange dots underneath that green covered hill-like shape might be. Who knows? Maybe we can be paint archaeologists and imagine some areas are buried by other areas and what might be beneath them. Why is there a red sky and also a blue sky? Is it a different planet that we're looking at here? Maybe it is. That would be kind of cool. Maybe I'm starting to love this painting that I almost rejected. Do you see anything in the script running across the top or down the side of the hill? I'm curious. And also let me know, have you ever drawn something or painted something that initially you weren't very proud of, but on second look you started to see things in and now you like it? Or did you paint something that you were ready to scrap until you heard a second perspective? Maybe a friend or a relative looked at it and said, hey, wait a minute, what do you mean you don't like that piece? I love this. Let me know if you have. Or do you also dislike this painting of mine and prefer my other work? My feelings will not be hurt one bit if that's the case, because I agree. But anyway, I think it's a very important message for us that what we love is what we are, and what we dislike, we can learn from. It carries a lesson in it. That's what that intuitive message said to me in the Bashar-like tonality. Be what you love and learn from what repels you. That's it. That's the title of this work. Be what you love, learn from what you don't. And what am I learning from this painting that I don't love? I'm learning that maybe I do love it after all, but for different reasons than mere aesthetic. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you got something out of this video. And I look forward to, hearing from you in a comment. Like, comment, subscribe, please. It really does help a small channel like mine get more noticed by the YouTube algorithm. Maybe get shared with more people who might resonate with it. And let me know, who's your favorite abstract artist? Do you create anything? And how do you feel about your own art? Thank you so much once again. So much love to you. Bye for now.